Let's face it, folks. The big boys want no part of JMU. Once again, Tulane is the only G5 school that is ranked. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we'll get to an early Week 14 preview, and then something that came up on the Twitterverse today. SEC and Big Ten, they can do their own thing. Everybody else can play against each other. That's my idea. We'll see what I will tell you why I'm thinking that. All right. But first, let's go over those college football playoff rankings with JMU not in them again. And it's very clear that the committee doesn't want another G5 in there. Tulane was 24th. And there's a couple of 3-loss teams that are right around it. All right. So unless something, and I'm not even sure what that is, as I'm pulling the plug on my computer, for I'm still doing it, for JMU to make it. For JMU to make it. Because if Tulane beats UNT, then for the American Championship title, they're going, right? If UNT wins, I'm thinking they're going to jump right over Tulane and JMU for that fact of the matter. All right. They only got one loss. All right. I'm not going to go over schedules. That one loss was a big loss to USF at home, by the way. All right. But it's very clear. And there are some guys and ladies for that fact of the matter. Carla Williams is the only woman on the committee. She's the Virginia AD. But you do have Chris Massaro. He's the AD over at Middle Tennessee State. You had, is it Chris Alt? He was at Nevada. He was a longtime coach at Nevada. So you do have some Power 5 schools being represented. But they are not getting any love. UNT could complain just as much. They have one loss. When you have Arizona State at 20 and Arizona at 25, you don't want any part of UNT or JMU. You just don't want it, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've been following Arizona, because I haven't, but they're 8-3. They lost to 14 ranked Iowa State at the time, 39-14. They did lose to BYU at home, 33-27 in double overtime. They lost at Houston, 31-28. Their big win is against 25th ranked Cincinnati. And when do you think Cincinnati got ranked 25th? Probably that week. So, it's not all that impressive of a schedule. They have lost, although a couple of close losses, BYU and Houston are close losses, but they did lose those ball games because, again, when you have that schedule, which JMU doesn't, I can't sit here and try and defend the schedule because they don't have a big-time schedule. But somewhere along the way, you got to win. You got to beat the games. It's just like, again, we're going with this Notre Dame-Miami thing. They are, again, defending Notre Dame. Notre Dame's big win is against Pitt. That's it. And they looked really good, or my Orange looked really bad last week, like really bad. And I don't think that's a fair assessment of Notre Dame, because Syracuse is god-awful. But they're counting the losses more than they are counting the wins. Flat out. In Notre Dame's case, but not in Arizona, not in Arizona's case. Now Arizona State has got a different situation. They actually have some nice wins. Although they did lose to Mississippi State, they did bounce back after that loss. They won 4 out of their first 5. They did get blown out at Utah 42-10. That's not good. They did beat Texas Tech when Texas Tech was undefeated. That's Texas only lost 26-22. But they lost to Houston. They followed that up with a loss to Houston at home. They did go on the road and beat Iowa State. They slipped past West Virginia 25-23. So they do have a couple of nice wins, except they have 3 losses. I mean, what are we doing? They have 3 losses. So when you're seeing that, and by the way, one of these 2 teams, Arizona or Arizona State, is going to end up with 4 losses. So one's not going to be in the poll. So maybe I'm overreacting a little bit. But nonetheless, when you have 3 losses, JMU can't overcome that. Okay, it's blatant. It's obvious that the big boys don't want. And when I say JMU, I'm referring to the little guys. Tulane is in there because they have a little bit of a history over the last 4 or 5 years, including beating USC in the Cotton Bowl. Okay, Caleb Williams, by the way, in the Cotton Bowl. So Tulane is, they're a pretty good team this year, obviously. All right, but a little bit more rep than anything else. Whereas JMU just jumped from FCS like 4 years ago. So they don't really want that school in there. They really don't. And admittedly, JMU fans were the ones saying we had our chance when it was when we had a chance to beat Louisville. All right. And I saw what Bob Chesney said. It's kind of tough to judge a team on their loss by like 6 inches. That's what he said, right? If we filled that gap and we did it twice, they wouldn't have had those 2 big runs. Oh, okay. Well, sure, but they did, right? If your QB was healthy, you wouldn't have played the backup QB and you might have scored more points. All right. So, a lot of ifs there. But that was their chance and they didn't get it done because what happens is, again, maybe you wait until the ODU game, but maybe they get ranked, all right, after the ODU game, and they're ranked, I believe, before the college football playoffs get going. And by the time the college football playoff rankings come out, they're in the top 20. They may be in the top 15. But they have never really cracked it. They're aren't they 20 in the AP poll or something like that? 21 now. But the football committee doesn't see it. All right. They just don't see it. They're not giving JMU any credit. They are going to try and not let JMU in. It's just, that's the way that is. Now, again, I guess the only way that somehow they can sneak in is one of the 2 teams, Tulane or North Texas, losing this weekend, which is not going to happen, right? I think Tulane's got Charlotte and UNT. Off the top of my head, I forgot. I've looked at that. It is not a difficult ball game. They have Temple. All right. So it's not Charlotte, but they have Temple at home, who is a 5 and a 6. So one of those 2 teams has to be upset. And then somehow, if they still manage to play each other, the other team has to win, I guess. If UNT, say, loses to Temple and somehow still manages to get in the championship, which I'm not exactly sure that's the case, then, Tulane, well, again, if Tulane wins, it's got to be the other way. UNT has to lose to Temple and then beat Tulane. That may just open up the door for another ACC team, is what that may do. So we shall see. And they're going to put, it's going to be funny, the ACC champion may not make it, but Miami might. If Virginia doesn't win the ACC champion may not make it, and Miami may get in there. All right. That's just the way I see it. Let me know what you guys think. Really impressed, by the way, about all the feedback for the divisions, because I'm for the divisions. I've always been for the divisions, but I like the pushback. Honestly, I was getting it from ODU fans. ODU fans, like, we had a shot. We lost. Keep the divisions. So I'm glad we are mostly in agreement with that. All right. Let's take a time out. One of the other things that came up today in the Twitterverse was college football playoff championship. I think the SEC and Big Ten should go alone. Everybody else will do fine. That's my 2 cents. Let's see what I will spell that out. Let's see what you guys think about that. All right. We'll do that right after I tell you about FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Still don't understand it. Line has not moved. Southern Miss is still a 6.5-point favorite over Troy. A couple other big ball games. Cajuns 9.5 over ULM. And interestingly enough, Texas State 9.5 at home over South Alabama. But that line has moved towards the Jaguars. I believe it was 10.5. It's now 9.5 for whatever that is worth. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. We will have a Thursday episode. That is in the can, as they say. I got my buddy Scott Watkins from the Biloxi Sun-Herald. He'll talk Southern Miss taking on Troy for your Thanksgiving episode. So I appreciate his time. Okay. I think this is going to happen anyway, somewhere along the way. I really do. I think the SEC and the Big Ten are going to break off, and they're going to play their championship. We're all going to watch. I'm going to watch. I'm not going to boycott it. That's not going to happen. I'm going to watch. Although I may go to bed early. I'm obviously going to watch. I'm not suggesting that we're not going to watch because they're playing. But that's basically what they want anyway. They want an SEC Big Ten championship. All right. Because those are, surprisingly, as passionate as the people are in the South, there's many more people in the North and much bigger cities, right? When you consider, Auburn and Tuscaloosa are little college towns. Now, I think Tuscaloosa has Mercedes outside of it. And actually, Auburn, on the other side of it, I think it's Kia in Georgia, which isn't too far away. Probably plenty of people in Georgia work at that plant, but maybe live in Alabama. All right. But those are Starkville, really small college towns. Not a whole lot there besides maybe the school and maybe a hospital. All right. Whereas Ann Arbor is huge. Columbus is a major league city. The hub of Big Ten country is Columbus, is Chicago. All right. What's the hub of the SEC? Birmingham, Atlanta, Houston, right? And, there's not a huge hub like there is with Detroit and just the bigger, Madison is probably bigger than some of those SEC towns. So they actually make more money too, the Big Ten, than does the SEC network, which kind of surprised me. But they just want themselves. All right. I don't need to see Tennessee in the college football playoff this year. Don't need to see it. I don't need to see Texas. All right. In the college football playoff. Let's see. Do they already have to? I mean, they lost to Florida. Okay. You can't really, you can't really give me them if, you're putting that in there. Where's Texas? Texas is 8-3. So if they beat A&M, are they going to get in? Do I need to see Arch Manning in Texas? Do they really belong in the playoff any more than JMU or North Texas or Tulane? Come on. You're also going to get a situation if Alabama doesn't make it and they get squeezed out, which I'd be shocked if they did, although I guess they did last year. So I happen to think there will be plenty of money to go around. And this is as long as it's in the current form. You start picking off other teams, right? The Arizonas from the Big 12 go in. And, maybe they pick off some teams from the Big 12. And all of a sudden, Clemson and Florida State are joining the SEC in the Big 10. All right. So if that happens, then all bets are off because now you're just going to take the top 50 programs when I'm looking at the top 32 programs. All right. Because then there's plenty. I think there's plenty for it to go around when people are coming back at me and saying, well, the sponsorship for the Mobile Bowl or the Sun Belt Championship are very local, I think that has to do with too many bowl games. All right, is what that has to do with. There's just a lot of them. I don't have a problem with the bowl games. I don't know how they make money, to be honest with you. It's all got to be ESPN and TV, because a lot of times there's nobody in these bowl games. But I wouldn't mind seeing that. Now, I want to be very clear here. All right, I am not advocating for a G5 playoff. I don't want any part of that. Okay, that's got NIT written all over that, and nobody cares about that. Okay, the whole idea of having a really good season like ODU may have here is, are they going to play a Power 4 squad, right? Cajuns had a really good year last year. Unfortunately, they got banged up at the end and played TCU, and it looked like a Power 4 squad versus a G5 team, all right? But you'd much rather have that than playing another G5 team and winning or losing, right? You want to see what you are against the big boys. That's the point of having a really good season and not just playing another G5 school in a bowl game. So I am not advocating at all for a G5 playoff. I think that's bogus, all right? And we'll just have to see. If you want to compare it for comparison's sake, we'll just wait and see, in the NFL, where all of these teams are equal footing. They're all on equal financial footing. Some maybe more than others, but they all get the same TV money, and it's millions, if not billions of dollars, okay? And that's why the NFL is so successful, because Green Bay in a small market is as profitable as the Giants, okay? But we'll see how that AFC South does. You could have a team with a losing record get in there, and someone, I don't know, maybe the Kansas City Chiefs have a winning record, but because they finished in third place, whatever, in the AFC West, they don't get in because the other wild card teams are better. But that division winner is going to get in. All right. We'll see what all those guys who think that's not right happen. We all remember, Saints fans all remember 7-9 Seattle hosting the New Orleans Saints. Isn't that Marshawn Lynch run? All right. That was beast mode. So I happen to think this is what I think SEC and Big Ten wants to do. If everybody else joins together, we'll be okay. If they go from 32 or whatever it may be to 50, then that's not going to work. There's not going to be enough left for the rest of us. But if it's just those teams that are in there now, in fact, I'd say revert back to what it was. Bring back the Pac-12, we'd even have more power. All right. But that's never going to happen. It never seems we never go back. We always go forward. Although I think we have Big East basketball again. On a side note, what do you guys think? I did get some pushback from that on Tuesday, which is fine. I appreciate going back and forth. The shorts are working though, because I put out something, and I don't know if people are not listening to it. It's all of a minute, and I'm for the divisions, so maybe that part wasn't in there, but try to get people to watch the whole episode. All right, let's do an early Week 14 preview. We'll do that when I come back, right after I tell you about Game Time. College football is here, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, and the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it, but let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to secure last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Plenty of seats available at the Southern Miss Troy ball game. That's for all the marbles in the Sun Belt West for a chance to go play JMU in the Sun Belt Championship game. You can get them for less than $10. That's fees included. Jump on Game Time, I'm telling you, right now. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, let's see where we are this week, because you have 5 teams already going bowling in the Sun Belt. That's pretty good. And you could get 4 more. The problem is 4 teams are playing each other that could all be bowl eligible. Marshall and Georgia Southern, both 5 and 6. And then App State and Arkansas State, both 5 and 6. So you're going to get at least 7 teams that are going bowling. And the only one I would question that's not, I presume the Cajuns are going to beat Monroe. That's not a great presumption, I guess. But I think the Cajuns have started playing much better. Monroe will battle, but the Cajuns are just a better football team. The other one is Texas State and South Alabama. South Alabama is not bowl eligible. They already have 7 losses. Texas State's pretty good, but again, that line has gone down from 10.5 to 9.5. We'll see what happens in this ball game. Could be just a ground attack game. So we shall see how those 2 teams play against each other. So let's just go through this for a little bit. We got a little bit of time to go. So the Cajuns taking on Monroe. That's 3 p.m. 9.5 point spread. Cajuns it favored 49.5. And again, the Cajuns, we've been talking about this for a few weeks now. Be one of the great coaching jobs, probably along with Mark Hudspeth. Was it 2014 or 2016? Was that Anthony Jennings who came over, and Eli McGuire got banged up? They ended up in a bowl game against Southern Miss and Nicky Mullins, I believe. And Southern Miss won that ball game. Cajuns needed like a goal line stand against Arkansas State just to get to a bowl game. Where it's so easy to coach, like last year for Desimo, when his team is healthy. All right. And it was. This year's not. All right. And last year, or healthy-ish anyways, he ended up with Daniel Beal and Lunch Winfield in the Sun Belt Championship game. But for the most part, he had a healthy football team, and they won 10 ball games last year. Right. This year it hasn't been. But he's done a great job coaching. He really has. All right. And the big question is now, who's the quarterback in 2026? Is Lunch leaving? Walker Howard leaving? Are they both staying? Who knows? We'll wait about that later on. But I would think the Cajuns win this ball game. I think this one's going to be a little bit tougher. Also at 3 p.m., Texas State, South Alabama. Both these teams playing well. Kentrell Bullock was the offensive player of the week in the Sun Belt, leading the South Alabama ground attack. And they just have seemed to find themselves. And again, I think Major Applewhite has done a pretty good job down the stretch here. After having lost 6 straight, they have won 3 out of 4, and they battled the Cajuns to the end. All right, that's impressive. Same thing on the other side, Texas State, G.J. Kinney, right? This is their final Sun Belt game as they're heading to the Pac-12 2.0. They had lost 5 in a row, and we've been over that a bunch. Right, they did get blown out by JMU, but the other 4 were like a combined 14 points, total. So they weren't exactly getting blown out in those losses. Then they blow out Southern Miss. Then they take care of ULM, and now they're getting South Alabama at home. I would think that Texas State would win this ball game. I'm not so sure if they're going to cover. All right, I'm talking on both sides of my mouth. So we'll take Texas State to win, South Alabama to cover. We'll do more of this later on. Marshall taking on Georgia Southern. Again, another line I don't quite get. Marshall is favored by 9.5. Marshall has been on a roller coaster for the better part of a month, right? They had won 4 out of 5, including the loss was to the Cajuns, tough 54-51 loss in double overtime. But they beat up on Old Dominion. They snuck by Texas State, but they had those 5 turnovers, like 3 in a row against Coastal, lost 44-27. All right. Put up a good battle, hosting James Madison, couldn't quite overcome a couple of mistakes, lose 35-23. They do beat Georgia State, but then they fall to App 26-24. Okay. Are they really 9.5 point favorites over Georgia Southern? And maybe I'm still thinking Georgia Southern's pretty good, but I'm not sure how good Georgia Southern is at the same time. Okay. They just got They got taken to the woodshed last week. That's not pretty. They lost to Old Dominion 45-10. I just think, and I know Marshall beat Old Dominion, but I think right now Old Dominion is better than Marshall. All right, as of right now. Good thing I'm not on the college football committee. I'm going to take Marshall to win. I think 9.5 is a lot of points. All right. Old Dominion is maybe embarrass Georgia State. 26.5 points. We'll see if Georgia State, they did battle a little bit last week against Troy. I would think this would be a fourth quarter game, senior day. I think you're going to get a lot of the bench players to play for the Monarchs come the fourth quarter. That's what I think. All right. That's in this case, that's the thing. You're not actually trying to impress anybody outside of going to a bowl game, and you're kind of tied into whatever bowl game the Sun Belt has, right? They're not trying to go to a playoff. They're not trying to get ranked. They just have to win. They're not even trying to get into the Sun Belt championship game. So they just have to win. And I think when you're laser focused like that, and I'm not sure Georgia State is going to be the team to come up and sneak up on you. This is a crazy ball game. App State favored by 2.5 at home over Arkansas State. Again, I mean, App State just lost 4 in a row. And those were close ball games, except the James Madison one, which was a blowout. They did give away Coastal. They lost by 8 in that one. They lost by 3 to Old Dominion, but that wasn't that close. That was they scored 2 touchdowns late, and they were behind Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern hangs on 25-23. But then they get a nice win over Marshall. Maybe they should be. I guess 2.5 is not a lot at home, right? You generally get 3 points. But I thought App State is better, but they have not played that way as of late, right? Turning the ball over 6 times against Southern Miss and letting a banged-up, suspended Cajuns come in there to Jonesboro and beat them on a goal line stand, as it turns out. Full circle, all right? And then we do have, I think we got one more. Oh, well, we got the big one. We got 2 more. We got Southern Miss hosting Troy. That's at 3:30 Eastern time. Southern Miss 6.5 point favorites. I wish I could sit here and take Southern Miss. I wish I could. I just haven't seen it. We have not seen it. If Troy does not turn the ball over, whether it's forced or not, they're going to win the football game. All right. They're going to win the football game. All right. It would be impressive if they do that. Maybe Southern Miss lost the same game twice. I don't know. They did a good job coming back, and we'll see how healthy Braylon Braxton is. But that's a tough spot for Southern Miss. And fans on Twitter are begging other fans to go. Begging. And then you do have Coastal Carolina hosting JMU. JMU, this is on ESPNU, and it's 21.5 points for James Madison. All right, and we'll see what happens here with Coastal Carolina. Their defense is, got suspended against South Carolina. It wasn't very good against Georgia Southern a couple weeks ago. This is where all of that, what I just said about ODU, can catch up to JMU. They can press a little bit, try to do too much instead of just trying to win the football game. Because, I mean, they're already hosting the Sun Belt Championship game, and they're trying to impress to get into the playoffs. When you start doing that, you lose focus on what is at hand. So, at the task at hand, as they say. So, let's see if they can focus. Again, it should be, that's a lot of points on the road. All right, I would, as somebody who has, used to do that all the time, I'm not sure I'm giving up 4 touchdowns on the road. That is a ton of points. All right. It's 21.5. Why did I think it was 26? ODU is favored by 26 at home against Georgia State. 21 is still a lot. But I mean, you could see a 35-10 JMU victory. That could happen. All right. They're playing against a backup quarterback in Ted Hudson. We'll see how much Coastal can put on there. All right. All right. We will do more for Friday's episode. We'll get into more of the ball games for that. Again, on Thursday, special edition, Thanksgiving edition, Scott Watkins joining me. We'll talk Southern Miss. They are taking on Troy. And we do go into other, we talk about the coaching carousel and, should you take a G5 job if you're trying to get a Power 4 job? Maybe Ricky Ronnie is just happy where he is. I did not realize how much he's making. He's making $850,000. That's pretty good. It's not $2 million what GJ Kinney is making, but $850,000 is going to go a long way. Except Kane Womacks of the world make double that. That's the only thing. As a defensive coordinator at Alabama. Now, that may be the high end because it's Alabama. La Tech may not pay that much, but tough to turn that down if it does come his way. Said he was very happy, has every intention of sticking around, but he hasn't been offered anything yet, is what I would take. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, things are going to happen fast and furious Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. All right, we shall see. I guess there's 9 Power 4 schools that are opening. The latest one is Cal. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Please have a happy and safe holiday. All right. We'll be back on Friday coming to you from D.C. Going to go see the little brother there. Mama Schultz is already there. So we're looking forward to it. We're just going to be there for a couple of days. I hope flying out Thursday or Wednesday at 7:30. That I got Georgia State has better odds than I do getting on that plane and everything taken off on time. I don't see that as much of a possibility. Hopefully we'll sneak our way on. All right. Thanks again for tuning in. Please be safe. Enjoy the football. We'll talk to you again on, Thursday with Scott Watkins, and then I'll be doing the show from DC for Friday's episode. All right. Again, thank you so much. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you so much for making it so. Talk to you next time.